My name is Alan Baker. I am a lifelong martial artist. I escaped the system as a young man to follow my dreams. And along that journey, I forged a mindset of accomplishment. This allowed me to achieve things that even I didn't think was possible. And sometimes I look back and still am surprised at what I have done in life. On this show, we're going to talk about those things and the mind tools that I learned from my different mentors and how they can help you move forward in your life, separate from the system, and achieve great things. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Alan Baker Show. I'm Alan Baker, and we have a pretty interesting topic that we're going to talk about today. And that topic's going to be awareness and the approach to awareness from a warrior's perspective. On this episode, some of the things we discuss, we primarily focus on the warrior's mindset and different elements that are related to it. For me, some of the pillars of that mindset, and this is a question I got from someone this week. One is just preparedness. I think that a warrior and the mindset that comes along with it is a mindset of preparedness, looking into the future at the potential to deal with chaotic events. Doesn't necessarily have to be a fight. It could be a natural disaster, anything that life throws at you. And considering what you have to do to be more prepared for that event. That is something that I think is a major pillar of a warrior's mindset. Secondly would be discipline and focus. Discipline is obvious. And I think, especially after decades in the martial arts studio, I have a conversation with students on a regular basis about what's it going to take to improve and get better. And, one of the major anchors of improvement is discipline. Developing the mental habit, the mental skill to do those little things that you don't always want to do. The discipline to get up and do the work. And we know we don't always feel like putting in the time or doing the work, but having the discipline to do so, that's a major element. And it's a major key to that warrior mindset. And focus. Those who know my story, that's something I struggled with quite a bit when I was a kid. So it's one of the things that brought me into the martial arts and eventually introduced me to the mindset, the warrior mindset, is focus. I had been, the school system had sent me home saying that I had ADHD. And, the story, I've talked about this before, they wanted to put me on drugs, and I was very fortunate that my parents chose not to. But ultimately, I was having a hard time focusing my attention or energy in any particular area. And I got introduced to the martial arts as an option, trying to avoid taking drugs for that at that time. And that's one of the things that my mentors and teachers introduced me to is methods of focusing my attention and focusing my energy. I later found out that focus is a powerful mental tool that applies to all of life. To me, it's a life skill. And if I had to make a list of life skills to teach my younger self, focus and the tools, the mental tools of focus would be a part of that. So for me, that would be number 2 is discipline, developing that discipline to do those little things that we don't always want to do, and laser beam focus. When I finally decide to zero in on something, having to focus to burn it in half with attention, passion, and energy in the direction that I want to go. Next would just be resilience and adaptability. In any endeavor, things are thrown at you. They're put in your path. And it can be any level of resistance that life can throw at you. Your ability to have resilience in those moments and to be adaptable in order to bounce back or move through those chaotic moments. Whether it be like something life threw at you, an event, major injury, heart attack, car wreck, or it's a fight. A lot of times when we talk about the warrior's mindset, that's the first thing that comes to mind, especially in martial arts, is I'm preparing for a fight. But a lot of the skills that are developed, a lot of that resilience and that adaptability that we learn to develop on the mat is actually applied more in life, especially in my experience. I applied that information way more outside of the academy than I ever did inside the academy. I would think the next pillar of that mindset would be mental and physical toughness. Making yourself mentally strong and making yourself physically strong. Putting in the time and effort, for instance, on the mat, rolling, sparring, training, that toughens the body. Same thing mentally. Putting yourself in situations where you have to mentally work your way through things and develop the same toughness mentally. And I would say finally, as far as one of the pillars for that mindset would be courage and sacrifice. As warriors or individuals that are on the path seeking to develop that warrior mindset, you sacrifice a lot of time. You give up a lot of life units in pursuit of developing those skills, developing those habits. And a lot of times you do so in service of others. I mean, one of the main reasons I wanted to develop the skills of, self-defense, self-protection, is because of my desire to take care of those individuals that are around me, to take care of your family. And I think that, that's kind of ingrained in certain individuals. That's, sometimes it comes from birth. You are just born with it. And then you seek ways to develop it. You are a natural protector. You're a natural guardian. And we desire to be good at it. So we seek out, as we mentioned earlier, we prepare in order to be good for those chaotic moments that'll be put in front of us. And this all, talking today, one of the topics we're going to talk about is obviously that warrior mindset and awareness, how that's related to it. One of the stories that pops in my mind, I have been very fortunate for the last 15 years to be involved with the Executive Protection Institute out of Virginia. Part of that involvement is I've had the opportunity to do the work over the years. And having the opportunity to be placed in some very interesting scenarios with some interesting personalities. And some of these personalities are highly recognizable individuals. Their work puts them in front of the public eye quite often. And due to that, they sometimes are placed in threatening situations, or they have received threats, which is one of the reasons why they would get involved with a protection agent. Because, maybe they have received a threat from, in this case, it was a fan, and they wanted to take the precautions because they were going to be working an event and their family was going to be there. So it was really more than just the client. It was the client, their family, and their friends. So they were, and for this particular story, they were out. This happened to be in Nashville. And it was me and another person working the client. And like I said, they're a highly recognizable personality. And, the event they were working during the day, they wanted to be seen. The plan was to be at the event and to interact with fans. And that's, just part of the job. But at night, they wanted to go out and see what Nashville had to offer. So they wanted to be a little lower key. at night. They had spent their day interacting with individuals all day long, and so they wanted to kind of tone things down. So we tried to pick a venue that would allow that. And, we talked to the owners and made those arrangements, but we still weren't completely out of the public eye. And this set up a very interesting scenario because the clients, they had taken over 2 pool tables and they were playing pool. And there was a considerable space between the pool tables and the rest of the room. So in the rest of the room was the public. So I was off to the side and, I would watch the public. And one of the first things I would notice is the visual lock-on that would happen. They would recognize the client and there would be a visual fixation. That's like one of the first things I would notice. And generally they would nudge the person next to them and reference in the direction of the client. They would start to build up confidence, and that would lead to a physical approach, which, me and my partner would be there, and we'd try to intervene and, have a conversation, ask them to work with us. And generally there was no problem. But, being set in this scenario, it gave the opportunity to recognize that visual fixation that happens prior to proximity. Now, of course, this is just a situation where the individuals are fans. But, I have watched this in other individuals too and other clients where it might not have been the most positive intent. And the same thing happened. Generally, there was some sort of surveillance or observation prior to the engagement, prior to proximity. And, one of the key elements of recognizing this, and I see this a lot in a lot of the things that I read and study in regards to acts of violence. Now, this isn't the case across the board, obviously, because you can have just a random act of violence as well. But there are a percentage of those interactions where it is preceded by some type of surveillance. In other words, the predatorial personality, that predatorial mind, for lack of a better term, they're stalking their prey. And they're going to do so with surveillance. They're going to use optics to choose who they want to make a victim. And one of the major elements that affects whether or not you pick this up is your optics, your ability to be aware of what's going on around you. And, there's different levels of awareness. I mean, we could discuss the first level of it being just awareness of the current moment. You'll hear this term used quite often, learning just to be present in the current moment, because or self-aware. Sometimes, your mind is busy and you're not entirely all in the moment. Maybe you're lost thinking about something that's happened in the past, or you are thinking about something that's coming in the future, and you're not all in that moment necessarily. And I think in today's culture, this is actually getting worse with individuals being raised on the cell phone, the TV, constantly needing that entertainment, which is coming out of an electronic device. I think we, as a society in general, are less aware of what's going on. These devices and the need to be connected to them almost shuts off that radar. So, I think going back to what we were originally discussing, is part of that warrior mindset is developing that level of awareness. Whether it's just self-mastery level of awareness, living in the moment, being present in what you're doing. Of course, that is a level of it too. But I think this also applies to, when you start getting more into the combative equation of being a martial artist, being a warrior. is the optics. And one of the first things that makes me think of, we have a drill that we do at the academy called a Predator drill. And it's from a system called KFM, Keezy Fighting Method. One of the unique things about this system is their approach to multiple opponents. That's a very touchy topic in the industry. Some believe that you can prepare for that. Some believe you can't. And a lot of times the ones that say you can't, you just shouldn't at all. Personally, I would like to have a plan, even if, I look at the situation and go, man, this is not a good situation. I don't know how well I will come out of that. Sometimes you don't have a choice, and I'd like to have a good plan. And for me, KFM, and obviously there's a few other systems too, but they have a plan that's one of the better plans that I've seen. And so the system has a drill they do. It's called a Predator drill. Sometimes they'll call it a 4-man prison. And again, you can do it with 2 individuals, 3, or 4. But the drill sometimes will look like, imagine you've got 4 guys surrounding you in the academy, and they have focus mitts on. And again, you can adjust the level of force that you can receive from these individuals. And we will do so depending on who we've got in the middle. But there's going to be varying levels of force that they're going to deliver to the victim, or what is lovingly called the predator in the drill. And the guy in the middle receiving the pressure has to learn to deal with it and has to maintain one out of many things, your optics. And under this much pressure, it's human nature a lot of times just to close your eyes. It's difficult to keep your eyes open and to keep your optics in play. But that's one of the more important things to taking action. I have to be able to observe what's going on around me before I can make a decision and take action. And so this drill is really good about that. Obviously we'll put them in the middle and we'll ask them to do different things in the drill. Like you mean work on a technique like a punch or something. But prior to all of that, just the fundamentals of existing in this environment, you've got to see. And past that, you need to breathe. Even advanced students hold their breath. They'll get so caught up in the chaos that this drill creates that they start to hold their breath. They close their eyes, they hold their breath. So they're shutting their optics down and they're shutting down their pulmonary system at the same time. And this is before they ever even try to apply a technique or an escape option, getting off the X, whatever. But the drill is a good example of those optics. Under more stressful environments, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a fight. There's many things that can happen in life that'll put you under these stressful environments, but training your eyes to be open and your head's on a swivel. It makes me think of a tool that is taught at the Executive Protection Institute quite often, and it's the OODA Loop. I actually hear this quite often in law enforcement training, protection agent training, military training. So this thought pattern was put together by an Air Force colonel, John Boyd. And there's 4 parts to it, which the name OODA, OODA, comes from. And the 4 parts are observe what's going on around you, basically. Orientate yourself. You have to analyze the information that you're taking in visually. You have to decide what you're going to do. What is your course of action going to be based on the alternatives that you've taken in? And then you have to act. So the first thing on there is observing. And I have this talk to go back to the drill quite often with the guys at the academy who are doing this drill. If you don't have your optics online in some way, that's the end of the process. The decision-making tool of the OODA Loop is shot after that point. So, that's how important that ability to open your eyes and see in chaotic events is. And, we're kind of discussing this like in a fighting situation. I think Colonel Boyd was a fighter pilot, and, he applied it in that situation. But, even a little bit of stress from some of life events can create the type of environment that precludes vision. And we have to train, especially as warriors. That's one of the things that I like to point out, that observation in the warrior mindset. Those are the guys that keep their eyes open. They observe. And then obviously can go down the scale and take action. And like we've mentioned it in the story with my client, that obviously carries over into the protector's mindset. And I like to mention the protector's mindset. You have the warrior's mindset, and I also believe it is a guardian mindset, the protector's mindset. Because, as warriors or guardians, I feel that we are charged with the protection of our loved ones, the people around us, the individuals that are in our inner circle. It's one of the reasons why I make efforts to train more and be more prepared. I commonly talk about in chaotic moments, if you imagine a room and chaos kicks off, not everyone in that room is going to step forward. Arguably, most of them would take a step back. But you're going to have certain individuals who are wired or trained to take that step forward. Those are the ones that are going to take action when action is needed. And, I want to be one of those people. I want to train those type of people. I want to create more of them in life, which is one of the reasons why I've done what I've done for the last 40 years, and I'm trying to do more. It's like this podcast, to reach more people, more individuals out there who, want that mindset, and they're looking for ways to train it, get more involved in it. That's why I'm doing it. So, I think, to go back to the original topic, that's also related to the protector's mindset. This makes me think of another mental tool that I've seen taught, again, at EPI, which is Cooper's color code. And I believe it was Colonel Jeff Cooper who put this together. And I hear this taught quite often in law enforcement circles, protection agent circles. And what it is a color code system for levels of awareness. And, like in white, you have no awareness at all. So if you move it up to the next color, which yellow, it is a slightly heightened level of awareness. And then it would go up orange, green, and as you go up the scale, you become more and more aware. And the different levels of awareness might be related also to level of involvement in an exchange, whether it be a fight, any type of situation that's chaotic, that you're having to make decisions and take action in. And anyway, it's something that you can look up if you're so minded to. I think it's something that goes along great with the OODA Loop. But this is all comes back around, if I use some terminology, if I borrow it from the protection industry, to a counter surveillance, or the habit of counter surveillance. And like we mentioned a little bit earlier, not all instances, but quite often, predatorial exchanges, what leads up to them are some type of surveillance. They're looking for a meal. They're looking for a victim. And I want to be able to recognize that and recognize being recognized. If that predatorial mind is out there and they are surveilling, I want to be able to recognize what that looks like on my end, so I can make adjustments, take action prior to engagement. And, this can lead to just recognition of what I call preattack indicators. And you could see these at different ranges. And most common ones that I've referenced and that I hear reference are generally inside of critical distance. And for me, critical distance is the predator or the threat is in a social distance. We're close enough to have a conversation. If he's outside of critical. He's just far enough outside that he's not going to be able to make physical contact with me unless he steps forward. And I want to be able to read that action. And so for me, that study of that range prior to contact, which I refer to often as critical distance, is a huge art in itself. But in this range, we have an opportunity to recognize movements or habits, predatorial actions that would indicate potential attack. What are some of those? Target glancing. An example of this is someone, maybe you're in a heated exchange and they're checking their surroundings. They're looking to see who's around to see what they're about to do. Or they're checking out what their exits are. Where are the witnesses? Another one would be grooming gestures or nervous gestures, scratching, wiping the brow, adjusting clothing, like they're loosening up a shirt because they're getting ready to take some sort of physical action. Another one would be clenching fist or different hand positions. I've actually seen both of these. I've seen clenching and I've seen flexing open of hands in stressful situations prior to a threat or the predatorial personality taking some sort of action. The shifting of weight. Earlier we were discussing the range that we're trying to keep that threat in. And he's just outside of range. So in order to take a step forward, a lot of times, and this is common in all of us as human beings, we have to shift weight in one foot or another in order to walk forward or move in a direction. So recognizing that weight shift that may precede a step or someone taking action or moving in forward. Just shifting weight into the balls of the feet could be a pre-attack indicator. And these might not be things that you recognize normally, but like this is a common list that I teach for pre-attack indicators because we want to be able to be aware of these and wire them into our optics, our nervous system, so that we pick them up and we become aware of them. And, there's different ways to do it. But first is just to become aware of them. Blading of the body. I hear a lot about this from law enforcement officers. If they're dealing with the threat starts to blade their body sideways like they're lining up to take some action or throw a punch. Fixation or a fixed stare. Now, I talked about this in the beginning, working the client. That's one of the first things I noticed. And, that might not have been a situation where it was a pending act of violence, but even at that level, there just being a fan that wanted to go have an interaction, that was preceded with that fixated stare. So that's a major one. Excessive fidgeting. And this could lead up to verbal exchanges as well. These are all just physical posturing that I want to be able to recognize. And obviously having an aggressive tone, verbal threats. All of this leads into the level I would refer to as wolfing, or having the threat wolf me. And invading your personal space. So this would be super elevating for me because now they recognize the social norms in the situation. And what I mean by a social norm is, imagine getting on the elevator. Generally you get on that elevator and everybody turns and faces the door. And occasionally, you should try this. Get on the elevator and don't turn around and face everyone. It makes them super agitated. It's not a social norm. Standing too close to someone is not a social norm. Well, predatorial minds, predatorial personalities, they know this, and they'll use this to apply pressure to you, either to test you to see, are you going to be an easy meal? Or is it going to be more difficult? It is an exchange that they're trying to find out what they're dealing with prior to elevation. So, all of this is in relation to what we were discussing earlier, is that visualization. Now, I think it is a huge study, obviously, especially for the warrior, whether they're a martial artist. I think there's different types of warriors, but I think all of them have that in common is developing the ability to be online and visually aware. And because that puts you ahead of the curve a lot of times in multiple situations. And, one of the stories I told at the beginning was a protection client that I was working. These individuals will hire you to be online and to be highly aware so they don't have to. But this is something that you can learn yourself as a civilian and become very good at. I actually teach this quite often in programs that I teach for protection agents, law enforcement. And this is a major area of study that we'll discuss. So that's mainly what I wanted to discuss today was those ideas. And, ultimately, like I said earlier, why do we care? Because I think there are like-minded individuals out there who are pursuing that path, the warrior's path, and they want to develop those habits. They have an ingrained desire to be that guardian, to be that protector, to be ready, to prepare in advance. And so, if that's you, then that's who I'm speaking to now. All right, guys, so that's going to be it for today. Hopefully you've got something out of this. If you did, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. And also, if you like the content, share us so that we can grow our audience and hopefully help more people, more like-minded people out there. Thanks, guys. Guys, if I add any value to you with this episode, please do me a favor and like and subscribe so that you will get the updates when new episodes come out. And also, if you like the information, share it with a friend. It really helps us grow and expand and reach more people and do more good.